Welcome to another episode of the Halal Gap. I am your host, Sofia Alani, and as always, I'm joined by...
As always, my name is Sikandar.
Your other host, he meant to add. And Hamada, where are you at?
Hello.
He's far away from the mic today. We are joined by someone very, very hilarious and cool. Take it away.
He's a talented writer, director, actor, and comedian that both Time Out LA and Vulture named a comic to watch and was awarded the New Face Award at the 2016 Just for Laughs Fest in Montreal. In addition to performing on both Late Night with Seth Meyers as well as The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, you know him from his numerous acting credits, including HBO's Insecure and Hulu's I Love You America. He's the mastermind behind the web series Ahmed's Ramadan Diaries on Comedy Central and the Facebook series Please Understand Me that was executive produced by Sarah Silverman and watched by millions online. Joining us all the way from LA, please welcome Ahamed Weinberg.
Wow, thank you. What a beautiful ego boost
How'd I
to
do?
hear that. You should.
Just all your accomplishments.
I wish you just listed a bio of everything that I've just failed at in the past 10 years. That would be like a much.
That would be too
it would
short.
be a
Man.
little,
That'd be too short.
much longer bio.
No. This
Like,
is.
Did not win show and tell in the second.
Yeah. Had issues being a redhead his whole life. Never felt like he belonged. And Muslim. Too many things.
You know what?
Yikes. Yeah.
I feel like we're going to dive into so much of that right now.
Please,
It's
yeah.
good.
Let's do a therapy session because I just haven't had one since COVID, and it would.
Really.
That's kind of what these have become. So you're in
Yeah, you're like, how's it going? They're like, it's not good.
That's literally our last 3 interviews have gone that way.
Yeah.
So this would not be
Okay.
out of the norm. But okay, so before we dive into that, let's start at the beginning, just like any good therapy session. So for those who aren't familiar with your story, it is a little bit more unique, and I'm talking about like your origin story now. So let's start right at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your upbringing, all that.
I love
kind of
like
stuff.
origin story. It just reminds me of like Spider-Man or something. Like it's just
Oh, absolutely. When did you get bit by a spider, Ahmed?
I was bit by a Muslim spider, and I just like suddenly there was just a Quran in my bedstand. And, yeah, I had a weird childhood. I mean, I was raised in this community that was a Sufi community, and Sufism. I'm sure the listeners know what that is, probably, but it's a more mystical, esoteric version of Islam. And my parents both met because they were both disciples of a guru from Sri Lanka. And the guru came to the States in the 70s, and a lot of guru shit was happening in the 70s, and a lot of people were joining weird cults, and their lives were being destroyed, and the gurus were all awful people, and somehow my parents seemed to have fallen into a pretty good one where he was he was just like this very wise man who, they believe is like a true like Yanni, like a saint, along these like Sufi lineages. And they were, there's just like a bunch of white people who like became Muslims. So like my parents, a lot of Jews like loved this guy. And there's just a lot of, I grew up like with all these weird people, and I don't know if I can say their names, but like Halima Freudberg, like Asia Applebaum, like these were just like Hamza Bibi Applebaum was her mom. Like they were just like these incredible names that could only happen if a Jew became a Muslim in the 70s. But yeah, that's how they met, and then the guru died in 86.
Wait, where was this community?
In Philly, Philadelphia. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So the guru came to Philly and then died in 86, and there was like they actually converted a Jewish community center into this place where a bunch of the disciples lived, but it was more like a community center for everyone to come and listened to the guru speak, and they built a mosque there on that property. That was like the only mosque in Philadelphia that was built like as a mosque. All the other mosques were like converted spaces, so pretty big brag there. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in this big house that was called the Fellowship, and had like a very interesting childhood, like basically living in this house that used to be, where the guru lived and where all the disciples would come and ask him questions. And it was kind of like growing up in a church, I think.
That's interesting.
So you're speaking of like Jews who had converted. Your father was one of them, so he grew up Jewish.
Yeah.
And then he converted to this Sufi Islam, and your mother was raised Irish Catholic, and then also converted separately to this same branch of Islam, and then they met through that.
Yeah, a lot of disappointed parents in this story. including my own, I think.
Did their conversion adversely affect relationships with their family?
Not really. I mean, I think my dad's mom actually brought him, because my dad's mom was like a hippie and had heard about this guru through a friend. So she actually brought my father to Philly to like meet this guru, and like this is like a very sober, like, it seemed like a very good thing for my father, who was, they were like hippies in Cambridge outside of Boston, and there was just a lot of drugs and a lot of stuff that was probably not great for like your son to be growing up around. So that was her idea, to like bring him to this cool community that she heard of, and then they both moved there together. My dad's father had already, after his parents got divorced, he had gone up to Maine and had become a Zen Buddhist. So that's my dad's parents. And then my mom's parents were very Catholic, and I think a bit skeptical at first. And I think I never met them actually. I met them when I was a baby, but they died when I was very young. But I think they were skeptical until my father like met the guru, and then my grandfather met the guru, and then he liked him and thought it was, a very like good thing for his daughter. So overall, there's some skepticism, I think, but they were open-minded enough to like just allow it to happen, which is kind of like how my parents are with like show business, I'd say.
Let's just see where this goes.
They're just at a certain point, you're like, why would I let this stress me out? Like, I've already suffered so much because of this person's existence, and just like let it go. Like, let that person be. Yeah.
So you touched on it a little bit, that you kind of grew up in this environment where there's all these children who have these like hybrid names of like your own, like Ahamed Weinberg, right? Where it's half Muslim, half Jewish almost. And like, were you aware as a child of like how unique that was, or was it the fact that you were so surrounded by other people who had similar situations that it wasn't, really a big deal?
I knew I had it bad. I knew.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, I understand that you hate my name and that you think.
That was my second question.
Why does your name suck? Why does it make me not sleep?
Uncomfortable in so many ways.
So many A's.
Jokes.
Yeah. Well, it does piss Muslims off a little bit, because it's not Ahmed. It's not Ahmed, and it's not Muhammad, and it's actually, because the guru's from Sri Lanka, it has a Tamil dialect of the name Ahmed. So I actually went to Sri Lanka with my parents a few years ago, and I saw like Ahmed's Pharmacy, and I was like, oh, okay, like.
It's all coming together.
This is where I belong. Yeah, so yeah, but Muslims are always, especially Uber drivers, they're like, Ahmed? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, it's Ahmed. They're like, it's not. They're like, you know.
You're like, are you telling me?
Yeah, they're like, your name is spelled wrong. You know that, right? I'm like, yes. Sure, yes. Just please take me to 7-Eleven. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, like, so was it something that you, like, from like an Ahamed Weinberg perspective, was that something that was something you realized was unique, or was it because you had all these other people that it wasn't such a big deal?
Well, yeah, so, like, a lot of the disciples of the guru, some became more religious and some were more, like, into the teachings, and some became more, like, Muslim and, like, got involved more so in like the religious aspects of his teachings. So my mom was just very religious and was a very, like, devout Muslim. So she raised me, like, more Muslim than a lot of my friends in the fellowship were raised. Like, and they also just had easier names. Like, their names were like Noah and Isaac. They just had, like, prophet, like Bible names, and I just got stuck with Ahamed. And yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know if I wouldn't be a comedian if I had an easier go of it. So it's fine. I mean, being a comedian is actually awful, I will say.
How so?
I'm just dependent on, like, my touring agents to get me work. Like, I don't have, like, a job, which would be nice. So, hey, but everything's fine. There's just a pandemic, and I haven't worked in months. I don't know who I am. Yeah.
How like we talked to Ismail a little bit about this as well. Like, how have you been able to try to stay sharp when there's, like, no comedy clubs open and probably very little writing opportunities?
I don't.
Is it Twitter? Because your
Twitter is
amazing.
I get
off the chain.
For those who don't follow
I'm gonna
you
send
already,
all agents to your Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's fine. Twitter, like, scratches the itch a little bit. My girlfriend, I'm performing for her quite a bit.
Are you doing Zoom
I'm not
shows?
doing Zoom shows, no. I just can't. It's so awkward. Like, this is bad enough. You know what I mean? Like,
Hey, now.
I think I did one, and I was like, ugh. And then I did a sketch. I got booked on another Zoom show, and I did, like, this weird thing where I was, like, doing an exercise routine and had my friend knock on the door pretending he was my landlord.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, digital shorts could be the new thing out of all this madness. You just create more digital shorts.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Yeah, that was just, like, a short-term solution to this problem, which is that stand-up is just at a standstill. Yeah.
Yeah. Is what it is, I guess. So was stand-up something that you were always kind of drawn to, even as, like, living in the community in Philadelphia and kind of this religious upbringing? Was stand-up, like, that thing that you would gravitate towards?
Yeah.
Or is it something that came later?
I mean, I was just on top of having a weird name. Like, I went to Muslim schools, and I was homeschooled. Let's see, I was homeschooled for, I think, first grade, and then before that, I went to, like, these, Muslim schools in South Philly. And then in second grade, I went to, like, this private school where I was the only Muslim in the entire school. So it was just, like, a very shocking, not only being, like, the only Muslim in the school, but I was just bad at sports, and just, like, I wasn't awkward. I just, like, definitely wasn't, like, a cool kid, and I found some solace in, like, being funny at a young age and, like, grasping onto that as, oh, this is the thing that's gonna make me. It was an all boys school, so it wasn't really about, like, impressing girls, but it was just about, like, an identity. And then in sixth grade, we had a talent show, and my friend signed me up to do stand-up, and I was, like, terrified. I wasn't a performer at all. I was just, like, funny with my friends, and I just did it, and I was like, was terrified. My dad helped me write jokes, and they were about being Muslim and Jewish, and I like didn't understand what I was saying. Like they were about like holy war, being at a holy war with myself, and
Oh God.
I was like,
Your dad's getting in there.
yeah, he really like went for the jugular like right away. He's like, I got the joke for you. How about holy war? And I mean, I think it was so. I had a big afro too. I for some reason just like grew my hair out super long, and I just killed. Like I remember doing so well at that talent show that was in a chapel, like in front of the entire school. And I don't know if they were laughing at me. I imagine that's some of what was going on, because I probably stared at the floor the whole time and just like spoke the jokes monotone into a microphone. But I killed, and then the next day people were like older kids were like, hey, you're cool. And that was just, I've just been chasing that for, 20 some years now. Or not.
It was like the approval of like the 8th graders.
Yeah, just like one 8th grader coming up to me in the hall and being like, hey, you're funny. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now, I guess. Cut to me like crying in my studio apartment in Koreatown, like, 15 years later. Just like, but it's worth it. It's a really...
You're really selling.
I mean, no, you shouldn't do stand-up. I will say that. Like, if you are thinking about it, like, people reach out to me and I'm like, please don't do it. I mean, if someone telling you not to do it is enough for you not to do it, then you shouldn't be doing it anyway. So I'm kind of just acting like somewhat of a barrier. Filter.
How badly do you want it?
Yeah, if a stranger telling you don't do it is going to stop you, then yeah, you should do it.
So, like, while people telling you were funny encouraged you to do it, if someone came to you when you were younger and was like, don't do it, would that have changed your path, you think?
No, because I live in a delusion that I deserve to be heard and that I'm important. Yeah.
Nice.
Was
there like a point when you were like, okay, I want to like pursue this as an actual career?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it so much that I performed at a couple more talent shows, believe it or not, like in my school. And it was just such a novel thing that I would like do really well, because I was like the comedian. And then I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to drop out or not go and just like go to New York and do stand-up, but that wasn't like an option, really. It just would have killed my parents to like not go to college. So I went to University of Vermont, which is like this hippie school, this like state school that's just like where Bernie Sanders like would literally hang out on campus. Like I thought he was like a homeless guy.
Like, who's that dude smoking weed in the corner?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would
professor?
get me high. I don't want to say that. I remember a homeless guy getting me high, and maybe it was him. That's all I'm saying. And
check out.
yeah, wait, are you? Never mind.
Are you vice presidential?
Yeah.
What, Bernie Sanders?
I was gonna say Joe Biden, and then I was like, wait.
We're talking about...
No, Joe Biden doesn't smoke weed. That guy's not cool.
Are you kidding? He's always high.
Joe Biden? No, he's like entering dementia.
Yeah.
I don't think he's high.
That's what it is.
I think it's a little bit of a different problem.
I thought it was the drugs.
If he came out and was like, I've been speaking poorly and it's because I'm really high on edibles, I'd be like, great. That's at least good to know that you could stop doing that. It's just dementia, though. It's much worse than edibles.
Oh, God.
You see that video? He like put out a video where he's just like talking about a car, and it's like, what? He's like, I
feel like he gives up halfway through these videos too.
He just forgets his lines.
He's just like, you know what? Like, deal with it. Deal with it and edit it.
He just thought he was Jerry Seinfeld. He's like, oh right, this is my web series about driving in a car. He's just like drooling all over himself, talking about how his dad was a good driver. But it's a better option. I mean, we're just
but you know, like that's who you got right now. So
yeah, Trump's interview where he's like, "What do you say about coronavirus? Like, it is what it is." I was like, "That's ballsy, dude."
That's reassuring from your commander in chief.
It's pretty zen. It's pretty zen. He's like, actually, these are just meat vessels. So if you die, you go back to your creator. I mean, it's not a big deal.
He's been following some new gurus, it feels like. You know, he's just really zenned out these days.
Yeah, Brother Trump.
This is good stuff.
Oh, God.
So you go to Vermont, you do your degree there, and when did you decide that you were going to move to LA and kind of pursue this as like an actual career?
Yeah, it was all a big plan to drop out of college. So what did I do? I did a couple stand-up shows in Vermont where I was like performing in front of, you know, hundreds of white people who have never seen stand-up comedy before. And
was that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, both. Like, I did really well because I was just still doing that joke about being at a holy war with myself, and they were just like, that is funnier than the cow that I was hanging out with all day. So yeah, so then I like did really well at those shows because they just like had no idea what I was. They didn't even know what Islam was. They're just like, that's funny, whatever that means. Yeah, so I went to New York for a summer and like did open mics in New York City, which are brutal. So I went from like, you know, these safe haven.
Have you seen Crashing?
I've watched a little bit, yeah.
Okay, how close is it?
I don't know. I don't think they really capture. I mean, it's a TV show, so it can't just be depressing. But but yeah, open mics in New York and LA are just, you're just performing for other comedians. So they're just waiting for their turn to perform, and they're not real audience members who like are excited to hear comedy and like have paid to watch it. So it's just a really tough crowd, and they're really like dark, sad rooms where you're like, I went from thinking I was really good to being like, oh, I actually suck, which was true. You know, I didn't know that I sucked. I just thought that I was good, and then I found out that I sucked, and that was a tough summer of just like wow, I really I'm not the chosen one. I guess I have to like, but I still wanted to do it, you know. So I found out that I could. I didn't want to go back to Vermont. I wanted to transfer to Temple University because they had a program in Los Angeles where you can do an internship through your film program. And my plan was to transfer to Temple, do that program in LA, and then just drop out and stay in LA. And I would be far enough from my parents that I could just not deal with it, you know, and just dive into stand-up, and that's what I did pretty much about 10 years ago, and I regret it every day.
How did your parents take it when you did drop out and they found out that, oh, he's actually going to just pursue, not just, but he's going to now pursue stand-up and acting? Were they eventually cool with it, or were they immediately cool with it, or?
They were at first.
Or are they still not cool?
I mean,
I guess there is that third option.
At this point, I've been on TV enough that they think I'm famous. So that's all it takes with parents, I think. It's like if you're on TV a couple times, they're like, "Oh, okay, he's I guess a millionaire. That's cool." And I'm like.
And they can like show their friends.
Yeah, they're like, why is he asking me for $30? He's a millionaire. Very interesting. Yeah, I think they were upset. Well, I had an internship that turned into production work, and I was working in production at like a comedy production company for like 5 years, you know, off and on. But they were happy that I was working in production. But the in-between times between those TV shows I worked on, I was delivering pizza and like really struggling to make ends meet, and they would get concerned and want me to come and finish my degree, and they were concerned at different moments for sure, but they also respected me and wanted me to follow my dreams. And there's also sadness to your child being like that far away from you, and not like realizing that it was going to happen. I kind of tricked them, and then I was just too broke to go home for a long time, so there was some definite points where they were upset, but overall very supportive, I would say.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I kind of wanted to ask about like specifically because you mentioned or like we've kind of talked about like your different identities, and so like being white and then also being a Muslim and like having this like combo Muslim Jewish name and stuff. And you also mentioned in I think an article that you wrote for Time that you did the birthright trip.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you wanted to, I haven't done it, so if you want to explain it for people who don't know what it is. And then I just wanted to kind of ask, like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I was in college at Temple the semester before I came out to LA, and I had my roommate was Jewish and loved Birthright. He had gone, and like it had made him like a very religious person.
And so Birthright is like a trip to go back to.
Yeah, Birthright is a trip to go to Israel for Jewish Americans. I don't know, maybe it's all over the world, but
it's Canadians too for sure. So I don't know if it's just North Americans or worldwide.
Maybe.
I know there's Canadians that do it for sure.
Yeah, well, it's a free trip to Israel for 10 days, and it's all inclusive, and it's really fun. It's also like a bit of a brainwashing exercise, I would say. They really like hammer in the Israeli struggle and the struggle of the Jews, and don't talk about the Palestinian side of things at all, And that trip was very eye-opening. I mean, I've always gotten along with Jewish people very well. I think like in my like weird inner psyche, like I'm like very Jewish. And growing up Muslim in America, like I didn't really feel like I belonged, especially being the only Muslim in my school, and most of my Muslim friends being way less Muslim than I was, So going to Israel and going on this trip where they're just like, hey, you're like a Jew, dude. Like, welcome. This is like how Jews live. And it's like, what? It's like beautiful. And like, they just take you all over the country and you're staying in nice hotels and you're like partying. They want you to get drunk. They want you to have sex. They want you to like have the best 10 days of your life. And also they want you to cry, and they want you to like go to the Holocaust Museum and like truly feel the suffering of the Jewish people. Not to say that that's not real or warranted. That's, a very, very intense, tragic thing. But at the end of the trip, the feeling that is invoked in you is like, wow, I'm very Jewish. I love being Jewish. It feels really good. And the Jews have really had a tough time, and they really need like a place to like be and to be safe. And I came home and I was like, hey, Mom and Dad, like I'm like a Jew. Like I can't believe it. And I want to go back and like live in a kibbutz and like eat delicious food all the time. And they were kind of thrown, and they were like, well, you should probably, learn about the other side a bit as well. And they're very nice about it, but I think they knew that I had been a bit brainwashed. And I was also bar mitzvahed. Like I had all this, I really got my Jew out, I mean, being Jewish is awesome. It is it's fun. Speaking as a Muslim, and there's no hell, dude. There's no hell.
It's all good.
Do whatever you want.
Did you like it's pretty? I guess it's pretty relevant. Did you watch or listen to Seth Rogen recently on the Mark Morin podcast, like WTF?
No.
he talks about him. I think he was talking about going on his birthright trip, and that's like where that entire experience being amazing, but also like you said, right? They don't at all acknowledge the other half of the equation, and more generally speaking, he was saying that like his entire childhood, it's like you're just kind of very much a one-sided conversation, which he just speaking from his own perspective is something that he realized was like not factual. As he became older, and it's just interesting because it would be. I wonder how much of that then plays into like a further propagation of like those stereotypes and those beliefs, and is that doing more harm than good to bring people together as it relates to building some level of peace within the region and so on and so forth. That's like a very big question. I know.
We don't have to go into
but
that.
it is an interesting thing to think about.
Well, as a college dropout, I will say I don't know, but
that's probably the best answer for any one of us to give at this point.
I mean, the weirdest thing about Birthright is how much it's funded by evangelical Christians.
Really?
Yeah. I read a Vice article about it. Because the evangelical version of the apocalypse happens in a Jewish state.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're motivated to help propagate Israel as a Jewish state so that the apocalypse will happen sooner than later.
Yeah.
And
Seth Rogen talked about this too. That's why I'm saying yeah.
yeah.
It's all coming
It's
back.
it's very strange, but yeah.
Huh.
Wow. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess like just kind of, so when you came back and you like really feeling your Jewish self, and then like what ended up, like, are you still really feeling your Jewish self, or like how did that happen, and like how does that kind of feel now?
I mean, the Palestinian conflict is most Jews that I am friends with now are, very empathetic to the Palestine cause. So I am very close with a lot of Jews, and I still feel like I have a lot of Jewish blood in me, like I love Jews and I love the practices, and I perform at temples, and I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I like to go to Yom Kippur and do all that stuff. And it's all very beautiful. I immediately after getting back from Birthright drove across the country to LA and went to another Jewish desert, if you will, of show business. And I got so immediately involved in stand-up comedy and making those connections that I didn't, all the connections that I made on my Birthright trip and all those feelings kind of dissipated, and the perspective of, oh wow, I was actually a bit manipulated, became pretty clear to me at that point. But yeah, if that answers your question, I hope.
I think it does.
Is Ahamed Jewish enough for you, Sophia?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, you passed the test.
Wait, are you Jewish? No.
No. Quite Muslim.
Yeah, y'all don't look too Jewish over there.
No.
Wow, bro. Come on.
That's rude.
I'm just saying, there's like sports memorabilia in the back. That's the only reason I...
That's his.
The Jewish community is, produced some great athletes, I'm sure.
Yeah, there was that guy. I remember him.
All right, let's move on from this topic before we get in trouble somewhere, somehow. Before we get... Anyway.
Yes, okay, so back to the Muslim identity. So you I mentioned...
Ahmed's like, oh, I gotta go.
Yeah. Gotta edit that out later. Yeah. So you mentioned, and in this article for Time that you wrote, where I read that you'd been on Birthright, you also talk about...
By the way, the greatest title ever for an article, I must say.
Yeah.
I was raised Muslim by an ex-Catholic and a former Jew. Here's what Ramadan teaches me that no other holiday has. Very I like that it's like right.
It's intriguing.
It's
right
everything
away.
you need
Not
to know.
not my idea for the
You're
title. I forget. No, they like. Ugh. I don't want to talk shit, but yeah, they definitely
talk shit about Time magazine.
Yeah.
They listen to this podcast, so like watch yourself.
Yeah, they came up with that title as like a way to, I think, draw attention, which is, you know, what it did. So I can't blame them.
Yeah.
But
carry on with your question.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I just needed to interject
Please.
with that title.
But yeah, so you write in there about like specifically fasting during Ramadan, and I think you did a really fantastic job of analyzing the journey through it. Like you kind of go like week by week, and like I think you really nailed down like what it's like participating in Ramadan specifically like in Western culture and like within North America. And I just kind of wanted to know like your experience with Ramadan as a white Muslim. Like, was it kind of different? Because I imagine, like, especially being the only Muslim at your school that you mentioned, that like when you're suddenly not eating for a month, like, are there a ton of is that just like is it more, you do get more questions because you don't look outwardly Muslim?
Yeah, I don't think I was like identified as Muslim so much. I mean, even though I was fasting and there was like a field trip to my mosque and all this different stuff, like I think because of how I looked, I just didn't have to like deal with any of the stereotyping or anything like that. Like people just kind of like accepted me immediately. Fasting was challenging for sure. I mean, nobody else was fasting in the entire school, so I had two options at lunch. I could either go to the cafeteria and just like look at the food, just watch the Jews eat.
One of my favorite pastimes.
Yeah. Right, as a child.
Yeah, I mean, which isn't the worst fate, but I would rather like they let me go to the computer lab and like play that weird helicopter game where you're like in that green cave and you're like trying not to crash the helicopter. So I got like really good at that game during Ramadan, and yeah, but it was definitely hard, and especially like in the later half of the day when I was really hungry, and I had to really like do this thing that nobody else was doing and nobody else like understood. Yeah, so it was hard because I had to like wake up for Fajr prayers, you know, and like I was exhausted at school, and our mosque had zikr before prayers. We had like an hour of zikr before even salat, so it was early in the morning, and I was dragged to the mosque and would fall asleep during zikr and then do salat and then like go home and sleep for 20 minutes and then go to school and be exhausted. And there was a lot of like, I was very hungry and tired, you know.
These are universal traits of Ramadan.
Yeah. But nobody really expressed any sort of until I remember 9/11 being like a big shift in all of that when a few friends, I remember like saying whatever their parents said to them, you know, at the dinner table, which was like, oh, I bet Muslims did it, or the Arabs have something to do with this, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And literally up until that point, like I never associated Islam with anything other than, you know, my parents. And, you know, I didn't think about like the stereotypes of terrorists or anything like that. So it changed how I thought about it, and also made me, you know, you just want to fit in when you're a kid. And I felt like I had this thing that made me weird and different, and you know, that again is how a lot of comedians feel when they're young. So it all.
How old were you when 9/11 happened?
Let's.
You never ask a podcast host how old they are.
You can guess.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
I was born in.
No, I'm just like.
Yeah, I was 12.
From like a. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, it's like a very formative time, and I assume being in Philadelphia too, right? Like that was super close to so many of the attacks. Was that kind of like, I mean, you just kind of alluded to it. Was that kind of a defining moment for you from like a faith perspective, or was it more so just like a realization that, okay, this is something that now I have to somewhat defend? Or because, you know, we talk a lot about like not necessarily in this context, but outside of it, you know, the idea of like covert versus overt Muslims, and like how when you've got an ability to kind of blend into the background, you know, more specifically with women, even like hijab wearing women and non-hijab wearing women, like there's a lot of, you know, conversations that we've had about the specific challenges that are faced when you are wearing a symbol of your faith. And you know, was that a point for you that was defining in any way in terms of, okay, I'm gonna like step forward and say, no, this is not what my religion teaches? Or was it more so like, I'm just gonna blend into the background and let this pass over? Or were you just kind of too young to kind of think of that?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wordplay.
That was some stuff.
I mean, I'm
Jewish themes.
Yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed to be like, I was, you know, I was embarrassed about being different, you know, and wanted to be normal. And, you know, it just led to me kind of getting in trouble because I just wanted to be normal. And what that meant in high school was like drinking and partying. And I kind of resented my faith and how different it made me and how different culturally everything was from how my friends experienced the world, which seemed to me to be very much, there's a lot more food and sleep and dating and things of that nature, you know? So I kind of pushed away from my faith for a little while, and I would still fast for Ramadan. Like that was always the thing that kept me close to it, because I could, even at moments when I was struggling with faith, I could always pull God out of the equation and be like, I'm fasting to experience the pain of others. I'm fasting because it's good for your self-control and everything like that. I also I thought it was cool, and my friends also like respected it and thought it was cool. So I even through my most difficult times with, you know, struggling with my faith, I would still fast for Ramadan and, you know, get what I could out of it. And didn't really start identifying as a Muslim again. I mean, people always identified me as a Muslim, but self-identifying, I would say, you know, until I was in LA and I was a comedian, you know, and felt more secure in who I was and felt that my identity actually was important and made me special and made me interesting and gave me a lot to think and talk about. And, you know, LA is just full of atheists for the most part. So that's not true. I mean, I guess like liberal, like Hollywood types are pretty atheist, I would say. So I've always been a rebel, and I guess when I'm surrounded by atheists, I just go Muslim. So
that's as good a reason as any.
No, but yeah, I've had a lot of beauty and like a great experience like reconnecting with Islam and especially with Sufism and the more esoteric teachings. Like I found really like a lot of beauty and meaning within that as an adult.
And do you find, so like kind of back to what Sikandar was saying as well, like with covert versus overt, and like I know that for me, like I'm quite ethnically ambiguous, I've been told. So like people see me, they don't expect me to be Muslim, so I will be in spaces where people say things or like do things that I think if they knew that part of my identity, they wouldn't necessarily say or do. So do you feel like you've had any experiences like that where like because it's like you're like a secret Muslim, like an unexpected Muslim, that like you have experiences like that where you're in spaces and stuff and people kind of say stuff and then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, especially doing stand-up, you know, I end up performing for people who aren't there to see me. They're there to see the headliner, you know, and I'm just the opener, or I'm just on a show, you know. And when Muslims come to see me, like, they know what my story is and they're interested, but a lot of times some people will, I've had some, you know, Islamophobic people heckle me and give me a tough time just for being Muslim, you know, and that's something that I don't think when they see me, they don't quite understand what's going on, and they don't, like, it just challenges their views of race or of identity and makes them upset. So
Because you don't fit into a box.
Yeah, I don't fit into a box, and I belong to something that actually, upsets them also in many of those cases where they're heckling. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you used like Ramadan as a central kind of focus for a few of your different, pieces and the Times article that we talked about and your web series, Ahmed's Ramadan Diaries. I'm wondering, going back to what you were just saying, is Ramadan kind of that central focus because for you it's something that you've always been able to kind of go back to, or is it something else? Like, is it more so because the subject matter you think would be interesting to a more widespread audience, or like what is it that has made it become a kind of a bit of a more of a focus of some of your works in the past?
Well, that's a great question.
Thanks, man.
That's the first good question I've heard.
Wow. Get out of here.
No, I'm kidding. I respect you both. You're nice Jewish people. I don't know. I think because it was such a central theme in my life, like it just became easy for me to. My web series actually started where I wasn't a web series. It was just a thing that I would write on Facebook while I was fasting, where I was just fasting and I would write Ahamed's Ramadan Diary, and it was just kind of like these long, like weird, absurd, like writings from a guy who's starving. And sometimes they would just be comedic, and sometimes they would be like heartfelt, and sometimes they would be about my parents. But it was just like whatever I wanted to write about that day. And people really responded to that. And when I went to Comedy Central, it just was like, hey, I have this thing, and could think it would be a cool web series. And they kind of they liked it, so they allowed me to use that as the platform. So it all happened naturally. I haven't really put much thought into like why Ramadan has been so central, but it is just a very interesting thing, I think, for most people to hear about, and especially it's just very different than American holidays, and
and I think it's such a lengthy and also like big component of like a Muslim's annual existence, if you will, that like people.
I'm so sorry.
What?
We're recording and you're just munching on an apple.
Yeah, what's wrong with it? Let the man eat,
dude.
I'm just getting hungry thinking about fasting.
The loudest crunch in the world, and I was like, wait a sec, like we need the sound.
No. People will appreciate and enjoy how naturally and
maybe
free flowing this conversation
he just
is.
feels so comfortable with us.
I'm also.
If anybody's wondering, our quality is not that bad. It's just apple munching.
I'm also laying on my bed, and
yeah, that part's
we
fun.
noticed you got real casual, but it was the apple really that I needed to comment on.
Yeah, I've slowly just.
All of this is staying in, by the way.
I'm just gonna turn on a movie soon. I think we could all just
start lighting a joint, just turning a movie on. It's gonna get real comfy.
Oh yeah.
No. So yeah, no. I mean, yeah. I think it's like one of those things where going back to Ramadan. Now that we've talked about apple munching, I don't know. I feel like it's probably just one of those things where it's such a unusual part of like something that people do on such a widespread basis. Like over 1 billion people are just not eating for a month. That I think if you're not a Muslim, kind of using that as a subject matter could be particularly interesting. So I don't know. I could see that being the case.
Yeah, I think people are genuinely interested in Ramadan. Like it's a good gateway into like learning about Islam, because when people hear about what fasting entails, especially when they're like, "Wait, you can't drink water?" It's just like it just
not even water.
Not even water. Yeah, it just blows their minds. So, and dieting and all that's very cool right now. And like
like intermittent fasting is like all the rage, and you're like, do you understand? Like,
yeah, they're like
intermittent fasting with Salah. It's a whole new game.
That's basically what Islam is.
It's just fasting and yoga. Like that's all Islam. It's just it's pretty much just being someone in LA.
Have you told them? Like, you guys are all Muslim.
Yeah, just repeat after me and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You guys know what you're doing is Islam. I might as well just teach you a few surahs. Like, why not?
Yeah.
So how was Ramadan for you this year, considering quarantine and COVID? And was it like more or less spiritual?
It was harder this year. I didn't fast as much as I wanted to. I had COVID, first of all. And like, yeah, I mean,
How was that?
it was awesome. It was really cool.
That was exactly the response I was hoping for.
If you know anyone who has it, just like kind of hang out with them a little. And
especially in that first 2 weeks, I heard they're really fun then.
yeah, I mean, so I was quarantined, like, I had it early and I was quarantining myself, like, well before everyone even started quarantining, really, and before the lockdown started, you know? And it was a tough Ramadan because I was just very alone. Like, I live alone, you know, and it's really hard when you can't go to the mosque. And my Muslim friends who are in comedy, like Ismail and Rami, are in New York. Like, I felt very alone, and I had to like be kind to myself and take some days off. And it was, I mean, I was already fasting from living my life, you know. It just felt like it was a bit much. And
yeah, Ramadan was, you know, somewhat forgiven in COVID time. Right?
I think, totally. Yeah, if God's, I mean, I think he can skip this year, hopefully.
I feel like life in general, it doesn't count in 2020.
Yeah, 2020
you know,
didn't
birthdays
happen.
don't count.
Yeah.
You know, career advancements aren't a thing. You know, everybody's just on pause. We don't age in 2020.
No.
Yeah.
You can't lose the year of your life.
Did you guys fast?
It's just not okay.
Yeah, I did. I've been lucky. I haven't, not to brag or anything.
You haven't had COVID.
But no. I was gonna say I haven't missed a fast since I started fasting when I was like 10 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. Good for you.
That's awesome.
Been lucky.
Such good Muslim.
Wow.
It was easy though. When we were growing up, it was like a 6-hour fast. It was like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. because we have like really short days in the winter.
Yeah.
And like super, like now it was like the last 5 years were crazy.
Well, Smileys do 6 to 6, so that never.
Yeah.
helped
So
me.
you guys, even in winter, you guys do 6 to 6.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Dang,
so like,
Sophia's a Smiley.
I'm a Smiley. So in the summer, it's like dope because it's like shorter, but in the winter, it's just like much longer.
Oh my
so.
god.
Yeah, we don't have that flex.
Yeah.
we just,
Is it a flex?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is a flex if you show up to my mosque eating at 6.
I would,
100%.
yeah. Anytime we would like do iftars together as a team sometimes, and like I would fast like extra long on those days for myself because normally I would be.
And
doing
Sophia would be
6
complaining the
I'd
entire
be like
time.
losing my mind. I was like, guys, it's like 8. I'm so hungry because like every other day I had already eaten 2 hours ago, and everybody's like, "Can you shut up? Like, get over it." And I'm like, "No, I'm hungry."
Dude.
But yeah, they just needed to know my sacrifice. Like, I had an out. I could have eaten at 6, but I'm doing this for you.
I mean, those are the hours. 6 to 8. That's when you're fasting.
Those are the hard ones, man. Yeah, exactly.
Those are the only hours that count.
Totally agree. 6 to the actual sunset.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sophia.
Listen.
Yeah.
No.
Sounds nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's but in winter it definitely sucks because you're still.
We got you there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it really just depends. But yeah, I guess it's like funny because if your life it just like started when it was really
it was
short
great.
and then has just gotten longer.
Yeah.
As the
It's
years
like
have
the
gone
ultimate priming someone into fasting.
is like make sure they're the appropriate age
Exactly.
in wintertime, Ramadan, and then you're good.
Yeah.
So okay, not to pivot too hard, but I do want to before we wrap up soon, I do want to talk to you about Please Understand Me, which is probably one of the most interesting shows I've ever watched in my life.
Oh, thank you.
For people who don't know, basically it's comedians who are pretending that they're either in a relationship or siblings or some sort of a relationship in that aspect, and they go and see like real therapists and just make up stories while they're talking to these therapists. So what was the intention behind this show? Were you just like, this is a hilarious concept, or was there like a broader, bigger meaning there?
It was just me and my friend Steven Steven Fine Arts, who co-created it and co-directed it.
Sorry, his last name is Fine Arts?
Fine Arts, yeah.
Oh.
Very Jewish.
I say, like, that's, like, tells you what your career is already.
Yeah. Sorry, I've just said that name so many times that I forget that it's absurd.
It's a great name.
It is.
Yeah, especially for an artist. It's very weird. But
like, what are the chances?
we were working on a music video together, and there was like a therapy scene, and we just had a break, and we were just hanging out on set, and we just kind of came up with this idea, and it was just, you know, fun, cool idea that I thought, what if we get real therapists and we record like an hour-long session with two comedians who are pretending to be in some kind of relationship and can improvise and do whatever they want. And I mean, we craft the story of like who they are and how they met, what they're going to talk about, and we'll come in as directors and kind of like pause it and get something again or whatever. But for the most part, beyond the structure of what they're going to talk about, they're allowed to improvise, do whatever they want. And then, yeah, so it just allows us to like have this really fun format.
So it's not like immediately clear, but I'm assuming based on what you just said that the therapists are in on it, right? They know that this is fake, or did they also think that this is like
legitimate,
just like a show about people having therapy sessions, and they didn't know that they're comedians?
No, we let them in on everything, and we'll show them we'll show them episodes, and basically, we don't want to like prank anyone or make anyone feel weird.
Yeah.
It's
therapist punked.
I think they like it because they get to like, it's just, hey, just if this was real, what would you say? How would you react? And a lot of times they break, like they just start laughing, they can't keep it together. But they're all good actors because they're just doing what they do professionally.
Right. No, totally. So was there something that you guys learned in doing that, like within the context of like therapy, like therapists there constantly giving feedback and advice? Was there something that unexpected that came out of that, or was it just like a hilarious 6-part or whatever, 6 or 7-part segment?
I mean, therapists are mostly there to just like calm everyone down and listen, and a lot of what was happening was, this is like people came with their problems, and then the therapist would like try to have them talk and think about it, and then they would just end up doing the wrong thing. Like that was always like the angle. So, I don't know if I learned that much about what therapists do, other than just try to kind of mediate and listen.
And like how to resolve absurd problems in people's lives that probably would never happen actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun show to make for sure. I hope we can do more of them.
Yeah, they're great. If people haven't seen them already, I would highly recommend them on Facebook as well as on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Yep.
But Facebook is free, so you know, not to not pay you, but
I don't get any money from that. So
okay, then definitely do Facebook.
Do Facebook. I don't care.
Awesome. Any other questions before we jump into our rapid fire round,
No,
Sophia?
I'm ready.
Okay, if you're cool with it, we like to end every segment with rapid fire. Wait, one of my questions requires me to know something first. Are you still a vegetarian?
Yeah.
Okay, I can tell by you just munching away on an apple the entire time that you love your veggies and fruits.
That's okay. Just
and
checking.
fruits. All right, cool.
Okay, so we are gonna do our rapid fire question situation. So it's like we're just gonna ask you 6 questions, alternating. The just first thing that pops into your head is your answer.
Okay.
So there's no wrong answers.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
So, right now. Okay, number 1. What's your favorite stand-up special of all time?
Richard Pryor live in concert.
Great answer.
What's your most rewatched movie? of your life?
Ooh, Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls.
2.
Specifically, the
That
second
might
one.
be the first time anybody has ever said Ace Ventura 2.
Yeah, much
Like,
better,
ever.
much greater film, my opinion.
And interesting. Is that the one where he has to like rescue the dolphin, or is that number 1?
That's number
Like,
one.
from the Miami. Okay,
Yeah, the
okay.
second one is when a rhino gives birth to him.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Great scene.
that quality.
Great scene. Great scene.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3. What's the most binge-worthy show on any streaming platform?
Please understand me.
Great answer.
Excellent choice.
Great answer.
What's your favorite kind of potato?
I don't know. They're all just
Like way of like eating it, like fries or like baked potato or like mashed potato.
Oh.
Or like
Well, I've been-
curly fries.
I've been camping, so you get to like cut up potatoes and put them in tinfoil with like oil and cheese, and then like throw that into a fire, and then you get
Yeah,
like these just
down.
cheesy potato squares.
I think we just found out Ahamed is white.
Yeah.
That
What
is-
are you talking about? That
that
sounds
is,
amazing. Cheese and
That was the
potato.
first time we realized that Ahamed is a white man.
This is when all your brown listeners
The
are
camping
tuning
part,
out.
Yeah. The recipe I'm fine with. Doing a
They're
camping.
like,
though,
wait,
I don't know
what?
about
Okay.
Okay.
What's the best vegetarian dish?
Oh, best vegetarian dish. There's like all these really good Chinese restaurants in Philadelphia that are 100% vegetarian. Yeah, growing up, there was one called Harmony. There's one on Cherry Street. There was one called Singapore, and most of them are closed now. There's one called Su Zing, and there's one called I forget it. But they always make like this vegetarian General Tso's chicken that's like breaded gluten covered in like that sauce, and
Yeah.
I just grew up like craving that constantly. It was like deep fried and crispy and
Oh,
Just
that does sound good.
really bad for you. Yeah.
Really deep fried gluten and high on
That
the
sounds
list
amazing
of
to me, to
really
be honest.
excellent meals. Okay, and then last question is, what's your favorite painting that you've ever touched?
Let's see. I don't know. I have touched a lot of paintings. Nobody gets why that's funny. Who's listening?
Except for us, we're losing our minds. But so he has a set in which he mentions that he just goes to museums and touches paintings.
Yeah, and they kick you out, but you can just touch them anyway.
I feel like it's the best way to get connected to the artist, just touch their painting.
Yeah, and then they come out to yell at you, and you're like, "Hello."
I mean, you can touch pretty much any painting. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
They're all just open.
Right?
Yeah. It's
There's too much trust involved in museums.
There really is. Like, I'm in a sculpture area, and I'm like, this is a recipe for disaster, for sure.
especially in Philly. People can't even there's that hitchhiking robot that got murdered in Philly. Did you guys hear about that?
Wait.
Yeah.
A rope?
Yeah, so there was like a hitchhiking robot, and it was just like supposed to be like a thing that went out to just like be nice, and then
Oh.
people murdered it, and
Well-
it was like unnecessary and mean.
Damn.
It had made its way across Europe, like a bunch. And then they were like, let's see how it does in the
US
States.
and just, like,
Got from New York to Philly, like a 4-hour drive, and that was it.
It got to Philly, and someone just destroyed it. It's
Yeah,
like
it
it's
was
very
not
funny.
okay.
It's
I think it's very sad.
I enjoy that.
I mean, yeah. So it is amazing that in Philadelphia, the art museum is just all that should be behind cages, really. But
Or should, yes. So, any favorites, or just all of them?
I did touch a Monet, and
Ooh.
Ooh. Did you
That's
ever?
what a
You
mill-
shouldn't have washed that hand after.
I always wash my hands after I touch paintings. I don't.
Especially in this day and age.
Yeah, fair.
Come
Was
on.
this pre-COVID or post?
This was in the heat of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You're
How
just
he
going
had it,
around
yeah.
touching things.
Yeah.
that's how I got COVID. Was from the
Yeah.
from the Monet.
If you're gonna get COVID, that's the way to do it.
It's the
Was
classiest.
it a Monet or a Manet?
Yeah, exactly.
It was Monet. I'm not poor.
He's an actor. Come on.
Right. Apologies.
Exactly. All right. Awesome. We're gonna go with the Monet. That's the answer.
Okay. Deal.
Cool.
All right. Amazing. Ahmed, thank you so much for your time, man. This was incredibly fun.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as you enjoyed your apple.
Yeah.
I did. You guys
probably are coming second to that apple, but
This apple's really good. When's the last time you had an apple?
like not in a long time.
I had one 2 days ago, and I literally had the exact same thought. I was like, man, apples are good. Like, I was, one of those things, you just stop having them as a child.
They're like super crispy and delicious.
See, I think the last apple I had was like a softer red delicious, and so I just was
No.
We should be asking people what their favorite,
apple is.
not
What's your
potato.
favorite apple? No, we're always asking
that's
potato.
Gala apples are really good.
Have you had Pink Lady apples?
Yeah.
Those are like crispy and kind of sour. They're delicious.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of apples, dude. I just want to promote apples.
Memories. Gonna throw a shout out to
like,
apples.
Not the Steve Jobs kind.
Shout out to apples.
Shout out. Okay, before we let you go, where can people find your work? Where can they find you?
Yeah, well, please, I need a website. I'm gonna try and make one soon. But all my Twitter or all my social media handles are just Ahamed Weinberg, AHAMED WEINBERG, and yeah, you can find all my stuff there.
Amazing. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you again
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you guys. This was fun.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining us for this week's episode of the Halal Gap. As always, you can find us on social media by searching Mosquers Film Fest. This is going to be our last episode for this season. Thank you guys so much for your support. We're hoping to be back again in a couple of months. Please enjoy our time off, but like for you. So your time off. Bye.